My wife lost her memory 3 years ago. Last Tuesday, I took her to see a neurologist in Asheville. When my daughter stepped out to take a call, the doctor's hands trembled as he leaned forward and whispered urgently, "You need to get your wife away from your daughter immediately." Before he could explain why, my daughter returned, clutching her designer purse with white knuckles and that same concerned smile she'd worn for months. I'd truly appreciate if you hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're joining me from and what time it is there right now. That doctor's trembling warning would change our lives forever, but let me start from the beginning of this nightmare. I'm Landon Pierce, 65, a retired civil engineer. My wife, Donna, is 62, a former elementary school teacher who used to light up every room. These days, she barely remembers my name some mornings. The decline started gradually. Forgotten glasses repeated stories. I told myself it was normal aging. But then came the morning she couldn't remember her famous apple pie recipe perfected over 30 years. That's when I knew something was wrong. Natasha insisted we see specialists. She drove up from Charlotte every weekend, her heels clicking across our hardwood floors, expensive perfume-filling rooms that usually smelled of coffee and Donna's lavender soap. She'd become Donna's primary caregiver by default. As a consulting engineer, I traveled frequently for projects. When Donna worsened, Natasha stepped in seamlessly. But there was something in her eyes I couldn't place. A calculating look when she thought no one was watching. She'd photograph our antique furniture, ask about property deeds, wonder aloud about updating our will. "Dad, you and Mom are getting older," she'd say. "We need to be practical." Power of attorney. "What happens if you can't make decisions?" I always changed the subject. Those conversations made my skin crawl. Dr. Grant was younger than expected, maybe 50, with wire-rimmed glasses and nervous hands. He'd been highly recommended, supposedly one of the best neurologists in western North Carolina. He examined Donna with us present. "Memory tests, coordination, checks questions," she answered with increasing confusion. "What year is it, Mrs. Pierce?" 2021. "Who's the president? Obama or Bush?" My throat tightened. It was 2024. Dr. Grant made urgent notes, hands trembling. "Mr. Pierce, I'd like additional tests. This memory loss is progressing faster than typical decline." He glanced at Natasha. "I need to review her complete medication history. Drug interactions can accelerate cognitive symptoms. Mom barely takes anything," Natasha said lightly. "Just blood pressure pills and vitamins." "Who manages her medications?" "Natasha does," I said. "She organizes Mom's weekly pill case. She's been incredibly helpful." Something flickered across his face. Alarm. Before I could interpret it, Natasha stood abruptly. "Sorry, I need to take this call." She glanced at her phone, though I hadn't heard it ring. "I'll be right back." The moment the door closed, Dr. Grant's demeanor transformed. He leaned forward, knuckles white against his desk. "Mr. Pierce," he whispered urgently, "you need to get your wife away from your daughter. Immediately." My heart raced. "What are you talking about?" "The medication records the decline pattern, the timeline. I've seen this before. Certain substances can induce symptoms identical to dementia. They cause genuine memory loss, but effects can be reversible if caught early." The room tilted. "What are you saying?" "Your wife might not have dementia at all. She might be." The door opened. Natasha stood there, clutching her purse eyes, moving between us with sharp assessment. "Sorry that took so long," she said smoothly. "Is everything all right, doctor?" The drive home felt longer than usual. I kept glancing at Natasha in the passenger seat, Dr. Grant's urgent whisper echoing in my mind. She sat rigid fingers drumming against her leather purse, checking her phone every few minutes with nervous energy I'd never seen before. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Just work stuff, Dad. You know how it is." But her laugh sounded forced brittle. She clutched that purse like her life depended on it. Back at our house on Sunset Ridge Drive, Natasha immediately went to the kitchen where she kept Donna's medications organized in a weekly pill dispenser. I watched from the doorway as she methodically sorted tablets into tiny compartments, her movements precise and practiced. "Mom, time for your evening pills," she called out sweetly. Donna shuffled in, wearing her favorite cardigan, the one with small roses that she'd owned for 15 years. She took the pills without question, trusting as a child. The sight made my stomach turn for reasons I couldn't yet articulate. "I think I'll make some tea," Natasha announced. "Dad, why don't you help Mom get settled in the living room?" As I guided Donna to her recliner, fragments of the past 3 years, began reassembling in my mind like pieces of a disturbing puzzle. Before her decline, Natasha visited maybe once a month, usually for holidays or special occasions. But as Donna's condition worsened, those visits became weekly, then twice weekly. I'd been grateful then. What loving daughter wouldn't want to spend more time with her ailing mother? Now I remembered other details. How Natasha always insisted on handling Donna's medications. How she'd grown defensive when I suggested we try a different doctor. How she'd pushed for me to travel more, taking on longer consulting contracts. Dad's expertise is in such demand, she'd tell people. Mom and I managed just fine while he's away. The financial troubles had started around the same time. Natasha's messy divorce from Marcus had dragged on for 18 months, bleeding her savings dry. Her ex-husband's lawyer had been ruthless, claiming she'd hidden assets. The settlement left her with crushing debt. $180,000 she'd confided to me, last Christmas tears streaming down her face. I don't know how I'll ever dig out of this hole, Dad. The creditors are calling constantly. I'd offered to help then, but she'd refused. I'm a grown woman. I'll figure it out. Now, watching her move through our kitchen with practiced familiarity, I wondered exactly how she'd planned to figure it out. I'm going to take a quick shower, Natasha announced after settling Donna with her tea. That hospital smell just clings to everything. The moment I heard water running upstairs, something compelled me toward her purse. It sat on the kitchen counter where she'd left it, expensive Italian leather that must have cost more than she could afford in her current situation. My hands shook as I opened the clasp. I'd never violated my daughter's privacy before, never had reason to doubt her. Inside, I found the usual items: wallet, keys, lipstick, breath mints. But tucked into a side compartment, wrapped in a silk scarf, was a small amber prescription bottle. The label had been partially torn off, but I could make out part of the drug name and the crucial detail that made my blood run cold. Diazepam, veterinary use only. Veterinary use only? I stared at the bottle, my engineer's mind processing the implications with horrible clarity. This wasn't medication for humans. This was something designed for animals, something that had no business being anywhere near my wife. The shower was still running upstairs. Donna sat peacefully in the living room, humming an old song she used to sing to our children. And in my trembling hands was evidence that the daughter I'd raised, the little girl who used to braid dandelions into crowns, had been systematically poisoning her own mother. What kind of monster drugs their own mother? The next morning found me at the Asheville Public Library, before opening pacing like a man possessed. Sleep had been impossible. That amber bottle haunted me. Juniper Wells, the young librarian with purple streaks in her hair, unlocked the doors at 9 sharp. She'd helped with my engineering research before. Mr. Pierce working on another project. I need to research a medication. Diazepam, veterinary grade. Her eyebrows shot up, but she didn't ask questions. Within 20 minutes, we'd pulled up medical journals and pharmaceutical databases. What I learned made my hands shake. Diazepam was an animal sedative for anxious pets. In humans, especially elderly ones, it caused drowsiness, confusion, memory loss, and with prolonged use, symptoms virtually indistinguishable from dementia. The effects were dose-dependent and crucially reversible if discontinued. This says prolonged use can cause permanent damage, Juniper noted quietly. Are you researching this for someone specific, someone very close to me? Every symptom matched Donna perfectly. The gradual onset increasing confusion, lost pieces of herself over 3 years. Not Alzheimer's, systematic poisoning. How long for recovery if someone stopped taking this? This study shows cognitive improvement within 24 to 48 hours. Significant recovery over weeks. I printed everything and drove home with a plan. If Donna was being drugged, stopping the medication should prove it. Back home, Donna sat staring blankly at an incomplete crossword. Natasha had returned to Charlotte, wouldn't be back until Friday to refill the pill organizer. I had 3 days. That afternoon, I examined Donna's pills. 7 compartments each with 4 tablets. I recognized legitimate prescriptions. Blood pressure, cholesterol. But 2 others were unfamiliar. Small blue pills not from any prescription I'd authorized. Using my workshop magnifying glass, I found tiny markings. DZ5, diazepam 5 milligrams. I replaced them with similar vitamins, heart pounding. In a way, I was diffusing a bomb. Before dinner, I visited Augustus Vale next door. Augustus was 73, a retired police detective with sharp instincts. Gus, hypothetically, if someone discovered family poisoning, what's the smartest approach? Augustus studied me carefully. Hypothetically, get proof first. Document everything. And be very careful. People who poison don't usually stop at one victim when threatened. That evening, Donna took her modified pills without question. I watched for changes, signs my theory might be correct. 24 hours later, I was reading when Donna appeared in the doorway, more alert than I'd seen in months. She held the crossword puzzle, several clues completed in her familiar handwriting. "Landon," she said, and something in her voice made me look up. Her eyes were clearer, more focused. "Why do I feel so sharp today? 48 hours without the hidden medication transformed my wife. Not because she'd changed, but because I was finally seeing the real Donna, after 3 years of watching her fade. Thursday morning, she was up before me, something that hadn't happened since her decline. I found her cooking breakfast, humming an old Carole King song. The smell of bacon filled the air. "Morning, sweetheart," she said, turning with a smile that reached her eyes. "I thought I'd make your favorite. Remember how you said my scrambled eggs were better than restaurants?" I did remember. More importantly, she remembered. "How are you feeling today?" She paused, considering seriously. "Different. Like I've been walking through fog and suddenly the sun came out." She looked concerned. "Landon, something's been wrong with me, hasn't it? Really wrong?" I sat at our kitchen table, the same one where we'd shared thousands of meals over 4 decades. How could I tell her our daughter had been poisoning her? "What do you remember about the last few years?" "Pieces. Fragments. Like trying to remember a dream." She served eggs confidently. "I remember feeling lost, constantly scared, like I was disappearing bit by bit." Her voice broke. "I remember you looking at me with such sadness." The woman across from me was my Donna, the teacher who'd helped hundreds of children learn to read. She'd been there all along, trapped behind chemical fog. "I kept trying to tell you something was wrong, but words wouldn't come right. I'd forget mid-sentence." She took my hand. I felt like I was drowning Landon, sinking deeper every day, unable to call for help. My throat tightened. "You're not drowning anymore." "No, I'm not. But how did I get better so suddenly?" "What changed?" A car pulled into our driveway, Natasha's silver BMW. She wasn't supposed to be here until Friday. "That's strange," Donna said. "Natasha's early." I watched our daughter get out moving with purpose. She had her key, would let herself in as always. In seconds, she'd see Donna alert and coherent. Donna listened carefully. I said urgently, "I need you to act like you've been acting for 3 years. Confused, forgetful. Can you do that?" Why would I?" The front door opened. Heels clicked across hardwood. "Mom, Dad, I brought lunch from that deli you like." Donna looked at me with wide, frightened eyes. She understood something was terribly wrong. Natasha appeared in the doorway, taking in the scene. The cooked breakfast. Donna sitting upright and alert. The intelligent awareness that had been absent for years. "Dad," Natasha said slowly, voice carefully controlled. "Mom seems so different today." I could see the wheels turning in Natasha's mind as she processed what she was seeing. Her mother alert and coherent for the first time in years, sitting at a breakfast table with evidence of independent cooking scattered around them. "You look wonderful, Mom," Natasha said carefully, setting down a paper bag from Miller's Deli. "But you must be tired from all this activity. Why don't you take your morning medication and rest?" She moved toward the kitchen counter where Donna's pill organizer sat, but I was faster. "She doesn't need those pills." Natasha's hand froze halfway to the dispenser. "Dad, Mom needs her medication. You know that. Dr. Grant specifically said—" "What medication, Natasha?" I stood between her and the pills. "Describe exactly what you've been giving your mother." Something shifted in her expression. The concerned daughter mask slipped just slightly. "Her prescriptions. Blood pressure, cholesterol, the supplements for her memory. Memory supplements." I pulled the amber bottle from my pocket, the one I'd found in her purse. "Like this?" The color drained from Natasha's face as she recognized the veterinary diazepam. For a moment, the only sound was Donna's sharp intake of breath as she read the label. "Where did you get that?" Natasha's voice was barely a whisper. "From your purse. The same purse you clutched like a lifeline at Dr. Grant's office." I held up the bottle. "Diazepam, veterinary use only. Want to explain why you're carrying animal tranquilizers? Dad, you don't understand?" "I understand perfectly. You've been drugging your mother for 3 years, systematically poisoning her to make her seem incompetent, while you positioned yourself as the devoted caregiver." Natasha's composure cracked completely. Tears streamed down her face as she sank into a kitchen chair. "I never meant for it to go this far. It started small, just to slow her down a little, make her more manageable while you were traveling. Manageable! Donna's voice was horrified. I'm your mother, not a pet. I was drowning. Natasha's voice rose to near hysteria. The divorce, the legal fees, Marcus cleaned out our accounts and left me with nothing. $180,000 in debt creditors calling constantly threatening to garnish my wages, take my condo. She looked between us desperately. I saw how much this house was worth, how much you had saved. I thought if Mom needed more care, if she had to go into a facility, maybe we could work something out with the finances. Just temporarily, until I got back on my feet. So you decided to create the need for that care, I said, disgust thick in my voice. I researched it carefully. Small doses, nothing that would really hurt her. Just enough to make her seem confused, forgetful. She was sobbing now, but it got worse and I couldn't stop. Every time I tried to reduce the dose, you'd notice she was better and I'd panic. You destroyed 3 years of her life, 3 years of our marriage. I never meant to hurt her this much. I love Mom. I love both of you. No, you don't. My voice was ice. You love our money. You love what we could give you. Natasha wiped her eyes, and I saw calculation return to her expression. Dad, look at yourself. You're paranoid, making wild accusations. Maybe the stress of caring for Mom has affected your judgment, too. Maybe you both need professional help. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a folder of legal documents. I've already spoken with attorneys about guardianship options for both of you. The courts take elder abuse very seriously, especially when family members make unfounded accusations against their caregivers. The threat hung in the air like poison gas. She'd already planned for this contingency, already prepared to paint me as an unstable elderly man, making delusional accusations against his devoted daughter. Get out of my house. Dad, you're not thinking clearly. Get out. I roared louder than I'd raised my voice in 20 years. You are not welcome here anymore. You don't have keys. You don't have permission. And if you set foot on this property again without explicit consent, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Natasha gathered her things with shaking hands. At the doorway, she turned back one last time. This isn't over. I'm still your daughter, and Mom is still my mother. A judge will see that I'm the only one trying to help. The door slammed behind her, leaving Donna and me alone in the wreckage of our family. The morning after Natasha's threats, I sat in Thornton Blackthorn's law office, clutching evidence that could destroy my daughter's life. Thornton was everything Augustus had promised. Sharp, experienced, unafraid of family drama. Mr. Pierce, this constitutes serious felony charges. Elder abuse fraud, potentially attempted murder. But we need ironclad evidence. What kind? Medical proof your wife was systematically drugged. Documentation of financial motive. Expert testimony. He leaned forward. We need to prove this was deliberate and ongoing. That afternoon, Donna and I sat at Mission Hospital while technicians drew blood for comprehensive toxicology screening. Results within 24 hours, they explained. Dr. Grant met us the next morning, expression grave. Mrs. Pierce, your blood shows significant diazepam levels consistent with regular dosing over years. The concentration suggests approximately 5 milligrams daily for months. He turned to me. This confirms systematic poisoning. The dosage was calculated to cause cognitive impairment without obvious overdose symptoms. Quite sophisticated in its cruelty. Can you document this? Absolutely. I'll prepare a detailed medical report confirming Mrs. Pierce was deliberately drugged to simulate dementia. My phone buzzed. Dominic landing at Asheville 3 p.m. What the hell is going on? I'd called my son the night before, finally revealing the truth. The silence had stretched nearly a minute before he'd whispered, I'll be on the first flight. Dominic arrived looking age overnight. At 35, he was usually California health and optimism personified. Today, he looked haunted. Dad, please tell me this is a mistake. Natasha didn't actually poison Mom. I handed him medical reports, the veterinary bottle, library research. He read everything twice, growing paler. Jesus Christ. She's been slowly killing Mom for 3 years. He looked at Donna. Mom, remember me visiting Christmas? You barely recognized me. I thought you were just getting old. I remember pieces, Donna said softly, like looking through thick glass. I knew I should recognize you, but couldn't reach the memory. Dominic broke down sobbing like the little boy who'd run to his mother with scraped knees. I should have questioned why she deteriorated so fast. Detective Sarah Morrison arrived at 6 with 2 officers. She'd reviewed everything medical reports, veterinary, medication, Dr. Grant's testimony, Natasha's financial records. Mr. Pierce, we have enough for elder abuse, fraud, and reckless endangerment charges. The DA is considering attempted murder depending on case development. My heart hammered. What happens now? We need formal statements from you and Mrs. Pierce. Dr. Grant provided expert testimony. With this evidence, we can obtain an arrest warrant immediately. I thought about the little girl on my shoulders at county fairs who'd cried stepping on butterflies, who'd hugged me tight every bedtime. She's still my daughter. Augustus placed a firm hand on my shoulder. Landon, you're not destroying your daughter. You're protecting your wife. Sometimes that's what love requires. Detective Morrison closed her notepad. The warrant has been issued. We'll arrest her tomorrow morning. Friday morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. Donna was in the garden tending to her roses with steady hands for the first time in years. I was reading the newspaper when I heard the familiar sound of Natasha's BMW pulling into our driveway. She walked up to the front door with her usual confident stride designer purse, slung over her shoulder, carrying a bag from the pharmacy. Everything about her demeanor suggested she believed yesterday's confrontation had been successfully managed, that her threats had intimidated me into silence. Morning, Dad, she called through the screen door. I brought Mom's new prescription. The doctor said it might help with her recent confusion. I didn't answer. Through the window, I could see 2 unmarked police cars parked discreetly down the street, waiting for my signal. Natasha let herself in with her key, moving toward the kitchen where she'd always prepared Donna's medications. Where's Mom? She should take these right away. She's outside, I said quietly. Something in my tone made her pause. She looked at me more carefully, taking in my expression, the way I sat rigidly in my chair. Dad, you seem tense. Are you feeling all right? Before I could respond, there was a firm knock at the front door. Detective Morrison's voice carried through the wood. Asheville Police Department. The color drained from Natasha's face as the reality hit her. The pharmacy bag slipped from her fingers' pills, scattering across our hardwood floor. No, she whispered. Dad, you didn't. I opened the door to let Detective Morrison and Officer Williams inside. They moved with professional efficiency, but their expressions were grim. Natasha Pierce, Detective Morrison said formally, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, and reckless endangerment in connection with the systematic drugging of Donna Pierce. You have the right to remain silent. Officer Williams continued producing handcuffs. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Natasha's composure shattered completely. She fell to her knees on our living room floor, sobbing with a desperation I'd never seen from her. Daddy, please, she begged, using the name she hadn't called me since childhood. Please don't let them take me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. The sound of her childhood nickname cut through me like a blade. This was my little girl, the one who'd insisted on wearing princess dresses to the grocery store, who'd made me tea parties with imaginary friends. Donna appeared in the doorway from the garden dirt still on her gardening gloves, taking in the scene with growing horror. That's my baby girl, she whispered, moving toward Natasha instinctively despite everything. Ma'am, please step back, Officer Williams said gently but firmly as he helped Natasha to her feet and secured the handcuffs. Dominic had been waiting in the kitchen, unable to watch, but unable to leave. He emerged now, his face etched with guilt and grief. Natasha, I'm sorry, he said. I should have seen what was happening. I should have protected Mom sooner. This isn't your fault, Dom. Natasha managed through her tears. It's mine. All of it. As they led her toward the door, she turned back one last time. Mom, I love you. I know you can't forgive me, but I love you. Donna was crying, now too torn between the daughter she'd raised and the woman who'd stolen 3 years of her life. The neighbors had gathered on their porches drawn by the police cars. Mrs. Henderson, from across the street, stood with her hand over her mouth, in shock. The Johnsons whispered urgently to each other, their children peeking out from behind their legs. I watched through the window as they helped Natasha into the back of the patrol car, her designer clothes, and perfect makeup, a stark contrast to the handcuffs and tears. The little girl who'd once caught fireflies in mason jars was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I've lost my daughter to save my wife, I said aloud, the words tasting like ash. Augustus appeared at my side, having witnessed everything from his own porch. You did what you had to do, Landon. Sometimes protecting the people we love means making impossible choices. Detective Morrison handed me a business card before leaving. The trial is scheduled for next month, Mr. Pierce. We'll need you and Mrs. Pierce to testify. The Buncombe County Courthouse buzzed with quiet tension on a gray October morning. I sat in the front row beside Donna, both of us dressed in our Sunday best, watching our daughter enter the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit that made her look younger and more vulnerable than her 38 years. Natasha's attorney, Damien Rothschild, was everything I'd expected from someone charging $500 an hour, expensive suit, silver hair, and the kind of confidence that comes from winning cases that should have been lost. He'd flown in from Charlotte specifically for this trial, hired with money Natasha somehow still had access to. Thornton Blackthorne sat at the prosecutor's table, our evidence organized in neat manila folders. Over the past month, he'd become more than our lawyer. He'd become our advocate, someone who understood that this case was about more than legal precedent. The state will prove, Thornton began in his opening statement, that Natasha Pierce systematically poisoned her mother over a period of 3 years, using veterinary-grade sedatives to simulate dementia, while positioning herself to inherit the family's substantial assets. He held up the amber bottle that had started everything. This medication designed for anxious animals was administered daily to Donna Pierce, causing memory loss, confusion, and 3 years of stolen life. Dr. Grant took the witness stand with the gravity of someone who understood his role in this tragedy. The blood work conclusively shows diazepam levels consistent with regular deliberate dosing. This wasn't accidental or medicinal. This was systematic poisoning designed to incapacitate. In your professional opinion, Dr. Grant, was this attempted murder? It was attempted destruction of a human mind. Whether the defendant intended death or just control the result was the same, the deliberate erasure of Donna Pierce's cognitive abilities. Damien Rothschild's cross-examination was aggressive but futile. The evidence was overwhelming: the medication bottle with Natasha's fingerprints, the blood tests, the financial records showing her crushing debt, and most damning of all, the dramatic improvement in Donna's condition once the drugging stopped. When it came time for Natasha to speak, she surprised everyone by standing without prompting. "Your Honor, I want to change my plea to guilty." Rothschild grabbed her arm, whispering urgently, but she shook him off. "I did everything they said I did. I drugged my mother for 3 years because I was desperate and selfish and thought I could get away with it." Her voice cracked. "I told myself I was just making her more manageable, but I knew what I was really doing. I was stealing her mind to save my financial situation." She turned toward our section of the courtroom, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I'm sorry. I know those words don't mean anything after what I've done, but I need you to know that I never stopped loving you, even when I was hurting you. Dad, I'm sorry for destroying our family. I'm sorry for making you choose between your wife and your daughter." Judge Patricia Winters, a stern woman in her 60s who'd seen every kind of family destruction imaginable, showed no emotion as she delivered the sentence. "Natasha Pierce, you have committed one of the most heinous betrayals of trust I've encountered in 20 years on this bench. You systematically poisoned your own mother, stole 3 years of her life, and nearly destroyed her marriage and mental health for financial gain." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the courtroom. "Aikia, I sentence you to 7 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. You will also pay full restitution for medical expenses, legal fees, and damages to your parents." The gavel's bang echoed through the silent courtroom like a gunshot. Donna broke down completely, then sobbing into her hands. "She's still my baby girl," she whispered over and over. I wrapped my arms around my wife, feeling the weight of everything we'd lost and everything we'd saved. "Justice has been served," I murmured into her hair, but the cost was too damn high. As they led Natasha away in shackles, she looked back one final time. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and for just a moment, I saw the little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap during bedtime stories. Then she was gone, and we were left to figure out how to rebuild our lives from the wreckage of our family. 6 months later, spring arrived early in Asheville, bringing renewal that mirrored our journey back to wholeness. I found Donna in our garden tending roses she'd stared at blankly for 3 years now, pruning with remembered expertise. "The soil's perfect this year," she said, eyes sparkling with intelligence I'd fallen in love with 42 years ago. "We'll have the best blooms ever." The transformation still amazed me daily. Her memory had returned almost completely, spirit restored. She was volunteering again at the literacy center, finding purpose in teaching. I'd retired completely after the trial, turning down contracts that would take me away. At 65, I'd learned no bridge was more important than the woman beside me at breakfast. I lost 3 years with you, I'd told her one evening. I'm not losing another day. Dominic had relocated from California to Charlotte, just 2 hours away. Guilt over missing the signs had transformed him into the son we'd hoped he'd become. He visited every weekend now. The warning signs were there, he'd said. I chose not to see them. Son, your sister fooled everyone. The important thing is we stopped her. We'd visited Natasha twice at the correctional facility. She looked smaller in prison uniform worn down by her choices. I dream about Mom's face when they put the handcuffs on, she'd said. I'll carry that image forever. Donna had reached across the table. I forgive you, Natasha. I don't understand what you did, and I'll never forget it. But I forgive you because you're still my child. That was 3 months ago. We hadn't returned since. Augustus continued being our rock, stopping by evenings to share beer and wisdom. The tragedy isn't that we trusted Natasha, he'd observed. The tragedy is she chose to exploit that trust, instead of honoring it. I'd started speaking at community centers about elder abuse warning signs. The response was overwhelming. Dozens shared similar concerns, asking for advice. Sometimes the greatest danger comes from those we love most, I tell audiences. Not because love is dangerous, but because it makes us want to believe the best about people, even when evidence suggests otherwise. The house felt lighter now. Donna's laughter filled rooms silent too long. Our marriage, tested by 3 years of confusion, had emerged stronger. We're survivors, Donna said, reading about a similar Tennessee case. Maybe our purpose is helping other families recognize what we missed. As I write this sitting where I first held that amber medication bottle, I'm struck by how much changes when we choose to see truth. Our family will never be the same. We'll always carry betrayal scars and grief over losing a daughter to her choices. But we're alive, we're together, and we're using our pain to protect others. Sometimes that has to be enough. Looking back at this true story, I realize how blind trust nearly destroyed everything I held dear. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the warning signs when someone you love starts changing. I trusted completely because Natasha was my daughter, but God teaches us to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. The hardest lesson from our grandpa stories isn't about recognizing poison in pill bottles. It's about recognizing when love becomes manipulation, when care becomes control. I spent 3 years watching my wife disappear, telling myself it was natural aging when every instinct screamed something was wrong. God gave me that moment with Dr. Grant for a reason, his whispered warning through a trembling physician who risked everything to tell the truth. But I almost missed it because I couldn't imagine my own child capable of such betrayal. Don't make my mistake. When medications multiply without explanation, when someone insists on controlling all medical decisions, when a family member suddenly becomes indispensable while others are pushed away, pay attention. These aren't coincidences in grandpa stories like mine. They're red flags written in invisible ink. This true story taught me that protecting our loved ones sometimes means protecting them from family. God doesn't promise us easy choices, only the strength to make necessary ones. I nearly lost Donna forever, because I loved Natasha too much to see her clearly. Trust but verify. Love but stay vigilant. And remember, the greatest betrayals often come wrapped in the language of care. Our true story proves that even in the darkest family, betrayal's grandpa stories can have endings where justice prevails and love survives, though forever changed. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that subscribe button to join our community of survivors and protectors. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting someone you love? Your story might save another family from walking this painful path. My son didn't know I spoke Italian. When I heard what he and his wife said about me that night, my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. The next day, when my son told the house seller to put only his and his wife's names on the deed, using my money, I realized they saw me as nothing more than a foolish old man with deep pockets. I stayed silent, pretending I understood nothing, but inside I was planning something they would never see coming. This story changed my life forever, and I hope it helps someone else avoid my mistakes. Please comment below with your city and country. I want to see how far this message travels. My name is Eugene Parker. I'm 72 years old, and I thought I knew my family. My son Trevor, 38, had been struggling financially after his third business failure. His wife Chiara, a 35-year-old Italian woman, worked at a travel company but never earned enough to cover their lifestyle. I've been a widower for 3 years, living alone in South Boston. After 45 years as an electrician, I had a decent pension and savings. Nothing fancy but enough to live comfortably and help my family when needed. Trevor had tried everything: the food truck that got shut down by health inspectors, the online marketing scheme that collapsed. His latest landscaping company folded when his partner disappeared with their equipment. Each failure crushed his confidence a little more. Chiara was different from Trevor's previous girlfriends. She spoke with that musical Italian accent, but whenever she got frustrated, she'd switch to rapid Italian, leaving me standing there confused. Same thing when she called her family in Florence. Trevor had picked up enough Italian to follow along, but me, I was always excluded. That feeling started eating at me 18 months ago, so I secretly started learning Italian online. Every evening I'd close my bedroom door and study with headphones. Slowly I began understanding what they really said when they thought I couldn't hear. 2 weeks ago they came to me with what Trevor called the perfect solution. "Dad, we found a way to get out of debt and give you a better investment," he said, settling into my recliner. Chiara perched on my couch, eyes sparkling. "We can buy a bigger house, you live with us, and it's good investment for the family." The plan seemed reasonable. I'd sell my house, add my life savings of $280,000, and we'd buy a family home together. They painted pictures of Sunday dinners, grandchildren in a big backyard, me having my own master suite. "We'll put all 3 names on the deed," Trevor assured me. "You'll be an equal owner, Dad. We're family. You won't be alone anymore, Eugene," Chiara added. "We take care of each other like real Italian families." The loneliness had been crushing me since Margaret died. The house felt too quiet, too empty. Being part of a real family again, having voices and laughter fill the silence, was everything I'd hoped for. I said yes. But last night changed everything. It was 11:30, and I was reading in bed when I heard whispers from the kitchen below. Something about the secretive tone made me curious. I slipped out and crept to the stairs. Chiara's voice speaking Italian. "Once we get his money for the house, we can sell it and move back to Italy with my family." My blood turned to ice. Trevor responded in broken Italian, "The old man will never know what happened. We'll put only our names on the deed." "He's so trusting," Chiara continued. "After we sell, we'll have enough money to start fresh in Florence. My brother has that restaurant space waiting." I stood there in pajamas, gripping the banister until my knuckles went white. 18 months of secret Italian lessons had just revealed the most painful truth of my life. My own son was planning to rob me blind. I quietly returned to my room, heart shattered, but mind already working. Tomorrow I would play the perfect fool. The smell of coffee and bacon filled my kitchen as I made my way downstairs. Trevor and Chiara were seated at my breakfast table, their faces lit with smile that seemed too bright, too rehearsed. "Morning, Dad," Trevor called out, jumping up to pour me coffee. "Hope you slept well. Big day ahead?" Chiara looked up from her scrambled eggs, dark eyes sparkling with calculated enthusiasm. "Good morning, Eugene. You look so rested. Are you excited about today?" I settled into my chair, accepting the coffee. "You two certainly seem energetic. What's got you so wound up?" Trevor practically bounced back to his seat. "Dad, we found the perfect house. You're absolutely going to love it. Really," I let my voice carry curiosity mixed with cautious optimism. "Tell me about it." Chiara leaned forward, her accent thickening with excitement. "Is beautiful colonial house, Eugene. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, big kitchen for cooking together, and the garden. You will love the garden for your tomatoes." I had to admire her performance. The way she stumbled over English, the genuine seeming concern for my interests. If I hadn't heard last night's conversation, I might have believed she actually cared. "The neighborhood is fantastic," Trevor added, spreading jam on toast with theatrical enthusiasm. "Great schools nearby and only 20 minutes from your old electrician buddies." "Sounds wonderful," I said, sipping coffee to hide my expression. "But can we really afford something like that?" Trevor's smile never wavered. "That's the beauty of it, Dad. With your house sale and savings, plus what Chiara and I contribute, we'll have exactly what we need. And remember, we'll put all 3 names on the deed just like we agreed. Equal partners." There it was. The lie delivered with such conviction, such apparent sincerity. I watched Chiara squeeze Trevor's hand, a gesture that looked supportive, but felt conspiratorial. "Equal partners," I repeated slowly. That sounds fair. More than fair, Chiara said, voice warm with fake affection. We are family, Eugene. In Italy, family takes care of family. Always. I nodded thoughtfully. Your family values mean a lot, Chiara, especially since Margaret passed. For just a moment, something flickered across Trevor's face. Guilt, doubt. But it vanished quickly. Mom would love knowing we're all together, he said firmly. She always worried about you being alone. The irony was suffocating. Margaret would have seen through this scheme in 30 seconds. So when do we see this dream house? I asked, standing to rinse my cup. The seller can meet us at 10:30, Trevor said, checking his phone. Marco Benedetti, nice Italian guy. Chiara's already been chatting with him. Of course she had. I wondered what they'd discussed in their native tongue. Well then, I said, patting my shirt pocket where I'd tucked the certified check. $280,000, representing 45 years of saving in Margaret's life insurance. I suppose we should get ready. As I headed upstairs, I heard them whispering excitedly below. Not in Italian this time. They were being careful now, sticking to English in case I was listening. Too late for that precaution. 20 minutes later, we were in Trevor's Honda, driving through morning traffic, toward what they believed would be their payday. I sat in the back seat watching familiar Boston streets roll by my wallet, heavy with the future they planned to steal. As we pulled into the driveway of a beautiful colonial house in Newton, I wondered what other lies I was about to discover. Marco Benedetti greeted us at the front door of the beautiful colonial house with a warm smile and a firm handshake. He was in his early 50s, well-dressed in khakis and a crisp white shirt with salt and pepper hair and kind brown eyes. Welcome. You must be the Parker family. I'm so glad you could make it this morning. Trevor stepped forward first. Mr. Benedetti, thank you for meeting with us. I'm Trevor. This is my wife, Chiara, and my father, Eugene. Please call me Marco, he said, shaking our hands. When he got to Chiara, his face brightened. Ah, the lovely lady I spoke with on the phone. Your voice is even more beautiful in person. Chiara blushed prettily, her accent showing through. Thank you, Marco. You are very kind. Shall we take a look around? Marco gestured inside. I think you'll find everything exactly as I described. He wasn't exaggerating. The house was stunning. Gleaming hardwood floors, crown molding, and large windows filled every space with natural light. The kitchen had granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, and an island perfect for family gatherings. The previous owners took excellent care, Marco explained. New roof 2 years ago, updated electrical heating system just serviced. I found myself genuinely impressed despite everything. The master bedroom had a walk-in closet and ensuite bathroom. 3 additional bedrooms each, spacious and full of character. The finished basement could serve as a family room. But the backyard really got to me. A sprawling lawn surrounded by mature oak trees with established flower beds, and a vegetable garden area perfect for the tomatoes Margaret and I used to grow. It's beautiful, I said, meaning every word. This would have been perfect for our family. Trevor shot me a quick look at my past tense, but Marco seemed pleased. The asking price is $420,000, Marco said as we gathered in the living room. But I'm flexible for the right buyers. This house deserves a family that will love it. That's very reasonable, Trevor said, slipping into negotiation mode. We're definitely interested, but we'd need to discuss details. Chiara nodded enthusiastically. Is exactly what we are looking for, Marco. Perfect for raising famiglia. I noticed how she let that last word roll off her tongue, the Italian pronunciation natural and musical. Marco noticed too, his eyebrows raising with interest. Famiglia, he repeated with a smile. You speak Italian? A little bit, Chiara said modestly. I am from Firenze originally. Firenze, beautiful city. I have cousins there. Marco said, his demeanor shifting to something warmer. And you, Trevor, do you speak Italian as well? Trevor straightened with obvious pride. I've been learning from Chiara. I'm not fluent, but I can get by. Marco glanced at me with polite curiosity. And you, Mr. Parker? I shook my head with what I hoped looked like good-natured resignation. I'm afraid not. These two leave me in the dust when they start chattering away in Italian. I just smile and nod. Everyone laughed, including me, though mine felt hollow. Marco studied Trevor and Chiara for a moment, something calculating flickering behind his friendly expression. Then he smiled and said, Well then, perhaps we should discuss the specifics of what you're looking for. That's when Marco switched to Italian, and my world changed forever. Marco looked at Trevor and Chiara and said in Italian, So how do you want to handle the paperwork? I continued examining a family photo on the mantelpiece, my expression carefully neutral, while my heart began to race. Here it was, the moment of truth I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Trevor responded in his broken but confident Italian, "We want only my wife's name and mine on the deed." Marco's eyebrows furrowed slightly. "But your father is contributing the money, correct?" "Yes," Chiara said smoothly in Italian, "but he doesn't need to be on the legal documents. It's simpler this way." I picked up another photo, this one of Marco with what looked like his own family, and pretended to study it with interest. My hands were steady, but inside, everything was crumbling. Trevor leaned forward conspiratorially. "The old man doesn't understand anything anyway," he said in Italian. "He'll sign whatever we put in front of him." The casual cruelty in his voice hit me like a physical blow. This was my son. The boy I'd taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, walked down the aisle at his wedding. And he was talking about me like I was some senile fool to be manipulated. Marco shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Are you sure about this?" "It doesn't seem right to me." "Don't worry about it," Trevor said, waving his hand dismissively. "He trusts us completely. He'll never find out." Chiara nodded in agreement. "It's really better for taxes this way. Less complicated paperwork. We can always add him later if needed." "But we won't need to," Trevor added with a smirk. "This way we have full control over the property decisions." I set down the photo carefully, my vision blurring for just a moment. The way they talked about control, like I was just an inconvenience to be managed, rather than the father who'd sacrificed everything for them. Marco looked increasingly troubled. "I have to say, this makes me very uncomfortable. The man seems like a good father. He is," Trevor said carefully, "but he's getting older and sometimes gets confused about financial matters. We're just looking out for his best interests." The lies came so easily to him. I wondered how long they'd been practicing these justifications for stealing my life savings. "Look," Trevor said, his voice taking on a harder edge, "do you want to make this sale or not? We have the money, we love the house, and we're ready to move forward. The details of our family arrangement are our business." Marco was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with his conscience. Finally he sighed. "It's your family. I suppose you know what's best." "Exactly," Trevor said, his smile returning. "We know what's best for everyone involved." I moved to examine a bookshelf, running my finger along the spine of an Italian cookbook, while my son and daughter-in-law continued to discuss the logistics of their betrayal. They talked about timeline, about how quickly they could get me to sign documents, about which bank would process the paperwork fastest. Every word was a knife twist, but I kept my face blank, my posture relaxed. Just a confused old man admiring someone else's belongings, while the adults handled the important business. "So we're agreed then," Chiara said finally. "Only our names on all the documents." "If that's what you want," Marco said reluctantly. "Perfect," Trevor said. "This is going to work out beautifully." I sat there in silence, my heart breaking with every casual word of their conspiracy, but my mind was already forming a plan. The leather seats of Trevor's Honda felt cold against my back as we pulled away from Marco's house. Through the windshield, I watched the beautiful colonial shrink in the distance, the home that should have been our fresh start, now forever tainted. Trevor drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, practically vibrating with excitement. Chiara scrolled through her phone with a satisfied smile. They exchanged glances that said everything had gone according to plan. "Dad, what did you think of the house?" Trevor asked, catching my eye in the rearview mirror. "You were so quiet back there." I cleared my throat, forcing normalcy into my voice. "Just taking it all in, son. It's a big decision." The words came out steady, but inside every syllable felt like swallowing glass. "But you loved it right." Chiara turned to face me, eyes bright with anticipation. "The garden especially. I could see you imagining your tomatoes there." "Yes," I said simply. "It would have been perfect." Trevor frowned at my past tense. "Would have been Dad were buying this house. It's happening." "Of course," I corrected quickly. "It will be perfect. I'm just overwhelmed. At my age, change doesn't come easy." "That's exactly why this is so great," Trevor said enthusiastically. "You won't have to worry about maintenance, property taxes, any of that stuff. Chiara and I will handle all the adult responsibilities." Adult responsibilities? As if 45 years of mortgages and repairs hadn't been adult enough. "Your father seems happy with it," Chiara said to Trevor in English satisfaction clear in her undertone. I stared out the window at familiar Boston neighborhoods, thinking about all the years I'd driven these streets, to work sites, to Trevor's Little League games. When had my son become someone who could speak about me with such contempt? When we got home, Trevor immediately pulled out wine. This calls for a celebration. He announced, producing 2 glasses. To new beginnings. None for me? I said, waving off the glass. I'm feeling tired. Think I'll head upstairs early. Come on, Dad, Trevor pressed. Just 1 glass. We're about to become homeowners together. Really, son, I'm exhausted. I patted his shoulder with forced affection. You two celebrate. You deserve it. I climbed the stairs slowly, hearing their excited whispers below. Once in my bedroom, I closed the door and sat heavily on the bed. 38 years of being Trevor's father. I remembered teaching him to tie shoes, helping with homework, his wedding day hug. When he whispered, "Thanks for everything, Dad," where had that boy gone? I pulled out my laptop, a Christmas gift from Trevor 2 years ago, and opened the browser. If they thought I was some confused old man who'd sign anything, they were about to learn otherwise. I researched property law, deed transfers, power of attorney documents. I read about elder fraud, about children who exploited their parents' trust. I learned about legal protections, asset safeguarding, financial abuse. Margaret's voice echoed in my memory. Eugene, you're too trusting. Not everyone has your good heart. Gone 3 years, but still trying to protect me. The celebration downstairs continued for another hour. Laughter, music, clinking glasses. They were toasting their future with my money, planning their escape with my life savings. That night I didn't sleep. I planned. The next morning, while Trevor was at work and Kiara was out shopping, I made the phone calls that would change everything. My hands were steady as I dialed Catherine Brooks' number. Catherine had handled Margaret's estate, and I trusted her completely. Brooks & Associates, this is Catherine. Catherine, it's Eugene Parker. I need to make urgent changes to my will and estate planning. There was a pause. Is everything all right? You sound stressed? I've discovered some things about my family. I need to protect my assets. Can you see me today? Of course. 2 o'clock. Bring any documents regarding recent financial discussions. After hanging up, I drove to First National, my bank for 30 years. The teller, Bethany, recognized me immediately. Good morning, Mr. Parker. How can we help you? I need to cancel this certified check and move funds around. I said, sliding the $280,000 check across the counter. Void this and transfer the full amount to a new account. Only my name. Bethany's eyes widened. Of course, sir. This might take a few minutes. While the paperwork processed, I made the call that would either be brilliant or insane. I dialed Marco's number. Hello, Marco Benedetti speaking. I spoke in Italian. This is Eugene Parker. I understand everything you discussed yesterday. Silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Mr. Parker, Marco finally said in Italian, shocked. You speak Italian? Fluently, I replied, and I heard every word my son said about me. Madonna mia, Marco whispered. I was so uncomfortable with that conversation. I almost called you last night. I'm glad you didn't. I needed time to think. But now I need your help. Anything, Marco said immediately. What they planned was terrible. How can I help? I want to buy your house myself, not with them. Just me. Can you hold off on paperwork with Trevor and Kiara? Of course, but can you afford it alone? I have the full amount in cash, but I need you to call Trevor this afternoon. Tell him there's a title complication that needs resolving. Stall them for a week. Marco chuckled with relief. It would be my pleasure, Mr. Parker. Those two don't deserve this house, and they certainly don't deserve a father like you. One more thing, I said. Tomorrow evening I'm confronting them. I want you there as a witness. 7 o'clock at my house on Ashford Street. Absolutely. And when you see how shocked they are that you speak Italian, I'll try not to smile too much. He laughed. I make no promises, my friend. By 4 o'clock I had met with Catherine and restructured my entire estate. Trevor was no longer my primary beneficiary. That honor went to the local veterans charity. I had established a trust for my care with Catherine as trustee instead of Trevor. The certified check was voided and money transferred to my private account. Marco had called Trevor with news of title complications delaying the sale. As I sat in my kitchen that evening, listening to Trevor pace upstairs, complaining loudly on the phone about the delay, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months control. By evening, everything was in place for tomorrow's confrontation. When Trevor and Kiara came home that evening, I was waiting in the living room with documents spread across the coffee table. Bank statements, legal papers, and my new will were arranged like evidence in a courtroom. Trevor stopped short when he saw me. Dad, what's all this paperwork? Sit down, both of you, I said calmly. We need to talk. Kiara looked at Trevor with concern, her eyes darting between the documents and my face. She could sense something was wrong. "Is everything okay?" Trevor asked, settling onto the couch tensely. "You look serious." "I have something to tell you both." I began in English, then, without warning, switched to Italian. "I understand everything you said to Marco yesterday." The change was instantaneous. Trevor's face went completely white. Chiara's hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide with shock and terror. Trevor started in English, but I cut him off. "No," I said firmly in Italian. "We're having this conversation in the language you thought I couldn't understand. You thought I was just a foolish old man with deep pockets, didn't you?" Chiara began to cry, shaking her head frantically. "Eugene, please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice growing harder. "I understand that you planned to steal my money and abandon me. I understand that you discussed putting me in a nursing home like some inconvenient furniture. I understand that my own son called me the old man who doesn't understand anything anyway." Trevor tried to stand, hands shaking. "Dad, listen, it wasn't like that." "Sit down," I commanded in Italian, and something in my tone made him collapse back. "You were trying to rob me. Let's call it what it is. We needed the money," Chiara sobbed. "My family in Italy has debts, and Trevor's business, so you decided to steal from the man who raised your husband, who worked double shifts for 45 years to save that money." My voice was ice cold. "Whose wife's life insurance you were planning to take?" Trevor finally croaked. "How long have you known Italian?" 18 months, I said. 18 months of listening to you exclude me from conversations. 18 months of being treated like I was too stupid to matter. I picked up the bank statement. The money is gone. All of it. Transferred to an account with only my name. Trevor's eyes went wide. "You can't do that?" We had an agreement that you broke the moment you decided to lie to me," I said. "I've also changed my will. You're no longer my beneficiary." "Dad, please," Trevor begged, switching to English. "We can work this out. We're family." I stood up slowly, feeling every one of my 72 years, but also stronger than I had in months. "Family doesn't betray family," I said quietly. "Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't abandon their elderly father after taking everything he's worked for." Chiara was sobbing openly. Trevor looked sick. "I want you both out of my house," I continued. "Tonight, pack your things and go." "Dad, where will we go?" Trevor asked, voice breaking. "I don't care," I said, meaning it. "You should have thought about that before you planned to steal from me." I looked at my son, this stranger wearing my son's face, and felt something inside me finally break free from years of disappointment. "You are no longer my son." 3 weeks later, the for sale sign went up in front of my house while Trevor called me every day begging for forgiveness. The real estate market was hot that spring, and my little house in South Boston sold in just 2 weeks for $15,000 more than I'd expected. 45 years of memories packed into boxes, but I felt lighter with each item I gave away or donated. Trevor and Chiara had been forced to move out the night of our confrontation. I'd watched from my bedroom window as they loaded their car with suitcases and boxes, Chiara crying, while Trevor made frantic phone calls trying to find them somewhere to stay. They ended up renting a cramped studio apartment in Revere, far from the colonial house they'd planned to steal from me. "Dad, please," Trevor said during one of his daily calls. "We made a mistake. We're family. Family doesn't betray family." I replied the same words I'd used that night. Then I hung up. The calls kept coming. Sometimes it was Trevor's voice breaking as he apologized. Sometimes it was Chiara sobbing in Italian, begging me to reconsider. I let them all go to voicemail. One afternoon I found a handwritten letter in my mailbox, written in Chiara's careful Italian script. She poured her heart out on 3 pages, explaining about her family's debts in Florence, about Trevor's failed businesses, about how desperate they'd become. She swore they never meant to hurt me, that they'd planned to take care of me after they moved to Italy. I read it twice, then threw it away. Pretty words couldn't erase what I'd heard that day at Marco's house. With the house sold and my affairs in order, I had some decisions to make. The first was easy. I donated $100,000 to the Veterans Support Network, a local charity that helped elderly veterans who had no family support. The irony wasn't lost on me. "This is incredibly generous, Mr. Parker," said Janet Morrison, the charity's director, when I presented the check. "This will help so many people who have nowhere else to turn." "That's exactly why I'm giving it," I told her. Next, I found myself a cozy 1-bedroom apartment in a quiet complex in Arlington. It had a small balcony where I could grow tomatoes in pots, a modern kitchen, and neighbors who minded their own business. The rent was reasonable, and with my pension and the remaining 200,000 from the house sale, I was more financially secure than I'd ever been. Marco called me the day I moved into my new place. "How are you settling in, my friend?" he asked in Italian. "Better than I expected," I said, looking around my clean, simple apartment. "It's peaceful here. And your son's still calling." "Every day, but I don't answer." "Good," Marco said firmly. "What they planned to do was unforgivable. You did the right thing, Eugene." "Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh," I admitted. "No," Marco said immediately. "I have 3 children of my own. If any of them treated me the way Trevor treated you, I would do exactly what you did. Respect must be earned even from family, especially from family." 2 months after the confrontation, Trevor showed up at my apartment building. The security guard called up to ask if I wanted to see him. "No," I said without hesitation. "Tell him I'm not available." Through my balcony window, I watched Trevor sit on a bench across the street for 2 hours, occasionally looking up at my building. Eventually, he got back in his car and drove away. He didn't come back. As summer arrived and my tomato plants began to flourish on the balcony, I realized something had fundamentally changed inside me. The constant worry about Trevor's finances, the guilt over not helping enough, the exhausting effort of trying to maintain a relationship with people who saw me as an ATM. All of it was gone. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. 6 months later, as I sat in my peaceful garden reading an Italian novel, I realized that betrayal had given me the greatest gift of all, my independence. The morning sun filtered through my balcony's small oak tree. My tomato plants were heavy with fruit, and the Italian novel in my hands, Il nome della rosa by Umberto Eco, was challenging but rewarding. I understood more with each page. This was my life now. Quiet mornings, good books, and the freedom to make every decision for myself. 3 months ago, I'd joined an advanced Italian conversation class at the Arlington Community Center. What started as language improvement had become something more valuable, a social circle of people who appreciated learning and growth. But it was Maria Santangelo who really caught my attention. A 65-year-old widow with silver hair and kind brown eyes. She'd moved to Boston after her husband passed. Like me, she was starting over learning Italian to connect with her heritage. My grandparents spoke only Italian when I was little, she told me over coffee after class. I always regretted not learning it properly. Now I have time. We began meeting regularly. Coffee dinner, long walks through the public garden. Maria had a gentle laugh and a way of listening that made me feel truly heard for the first time in years. "You seem different from when we first met," she observed one evening from my balcony. "More settled in yourself." I found myself telling her the whole story. About Trevor Chiara, the betrayal and confrontation. "That must have been devastating," she said, taking my hand. "But look at you now. You saved yourself." Trevor still called occasionally, though, less frequently. The last time he sounded different, humbler, maybe genuinely sorry. "Dad, I know I don't deserve forgiveness," he'd said, "but losing you has been the biggest regret of my life." For the first time, I didn't hang up immediately. "Trevor, I hope you've learned something from this." "I have," he said quietly. "I just hope it's not too late." "Ah, that's up to you." I told him, then ended the call. I wasn't ready to forgive, maybe never would be. But I was no longer angry. Anger requires energy I preferred to spend on better things. Maria and I had started planning a trip to Italy for next spring. She wanted to visit her family's village in Tuscany, and I wanted to see Florence, the city Chiara had dreamed of returning to with my stolen money. The irony made me smile. "You know what I've learned," I told Maria as we looked through travel brochures. "Sometimes losing the people you love is the only way to find yourself again." She nodded thoughtfully. "Trust is earned, not given. And sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who teach us to value ourselves." That's the truth I want to share with anyone listening to this story. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, honesty, and genuine care. When those things are missing, it's not betrayal to walk away. It's survival. If you're in a situation where people take advantage of your kindness, remember that it's never too late to choose yourself. I was 72 when I learned to say no, when I learned to protect what was mine, when I learned that being alone is better than being with people who don't value you. Trust is earned, not given. Your worth isn't determined by how much others can take from you. And sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the courage to start over. It's never too late to begin again. Looking back at my journey, I realized my biggest mistake was trusting blindly instead of observing carefully. Don't be like me waiting until 72 to discover that family can betray you. The signs were always there: whispered conversations, exclusion from decisions, the way they spoke when they thought I couldn't understand. Grandpa stories like mine happen too often. Elderly people watch their life savings disappear into ungrateful hands. This true story taught me that God gives us intuition for a reason, that uncomfortable feeling when something isn't right. I ignored it too long, choosing hope over wisdom. The Lord works mysteriously, sometimes allowing betrayal to teach us our worth. When I finally stood up for myself, I felt God's strength flowing through me, giving me courage I never knew I possessed. Here's what I learned. Love without boundaries becomes enabling. Generosity without wisdom becomes foolishness. Family loyalty that isn't reciprocated becomes self-destruction. These grandpa stories aren't just entertainment, they're warnings wrapped in wisdom. If you're living this true story right now, don't wait like I did. Protect yourself before it's too late. Set boundaries. Ask questions. Demand respect. Your peace of mind is worth more than anyone's approval, even your children's. Sometimes the Almighty puts difficult people in our lives not to drain us, but to teach us self-value. The hardest lesson, saying no, isn't selfish, it's sacred. You have the right to protect what you've worked for. Don't become another grandpa stories about an old fool who gave everything away. Learn from my mistakes. It's never too late to choose yourself, but always better to choose sooner. This true story changed my life. I hope it changes yours too. If my story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment about your own experiences with family boundaries. Your wisdom might help someone avoid my mistakes. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that matter. Together we can help each other navigate life's most difficult relationships.